So the other day I was browsing my favorite legal anime streaming service and I came across a little show called Soul Eater. Now, it being the spooky season at all, I decided to, give it a watch, see what it was all about. And as interesting as I found the show, especially the last 10 fantastic episodes, I couldn't help but be even more enamored by its OP. Paper Moon by Tommy Heavenly 6 is not only a beautiful composition, but it is complemented very well by the animation from Studio Bones. The OP starts with a shot showing all of the witch characters running away from something. Now this is very interesting because we don't quite know what they are running away from. However, the OP is quick to tell us exactly what's going on as we see the bandages from the Kishin fly by and engulf them. This, of course, is a reference to how the Kishin is growing in power. Then, of course, we cut to this fantastic title card where we have the legendary holy sword Excalibur. Now, the interesting thing about this shot that you'll notice is that unlike the witches, Excalibur is marching parallel across the screen instead of away from it. This is, of course, a reference to how Excalibur is the strongest character in the series, and not even Ashura the Kishin is enough to take him down. Now, this next shot is very underrated, okay? We get this pool of blood with some flowers. Now, while this, of course, has significance to the show, there's also a very subtle hidden meaning. Not only, as in a minute you'll see this is a reference to Soul's blood, but it also symbolizes the blood of all of the animators who died because they weren't able to feed their families after everyone watched Soul Eater on Kiss Anime. Remember, guys, there's absolutely zero reason to pirate anime. Crunchyroll.com/Mother's Basement. Anyway, back to the significance of the show. Of course, we see that a drop of black blood enters this red blood here and then contaminates it. Of course, a reference to what happens to Soul. Then we see Soul along with his partner Maka falling into the blood, and along with the lyrics, "I'm falling down into my shadow," we can conclude that this is a metaphor for Maka and Soul falling into the madness of the black blood, of course, what happens in this part of the show. We then transition to a spider web where we see the villain of this particular part of the show, Arachne. We zoom out as we see that her web covers the entire screen, similar to how her webs in the show stretch far and wide, and that she has influence over a large number of characters. Then we quickly get a split shot of Mosquito and Giriko, both with sinister looks on their face, which could be a subtle reference to how they are villains. Then we get an interesting transition which involves Mifune the swordsman swiping his sword through the middle of the screen and is protecting the young witch Angela. He splits the video across the middle to symbolize his conflicting sides, where he's not really a bad guy, he just does whatever he can to protect Angela. We then get another split shot of Sid and Nigus. They are both moving extremely fast, which perhaps could be a reference to how they move very fast in the show. We then have three split shots here, Marie, Justin, and Azusa. Now Justin and Azusa are looking very serious. They know that in this part of the show things are getting very intense, but as you can see here, Marie is smiling. This is, of course, foreshadowing for how Marie becomes evil later on in the season. Then a jarring transition splits all of those characters away, foreshadowing, of course, how they all die. Then we get a really quick shot of BJ drinking coffee, but then something really interesting happens. A cloud of smoke that forms a skull transitions BJ away, and we see a shot of Stein looking extremely, for lack of a better term, mad. Now, this is really subtle foreshadowing that only someone like me could understand. And of course, it is a reference to how BJ murders Stein in the last episode after Stein goes crazy and kills Blackstar. We then get a sweeping transition where we see Soul in the piano room with the little ogre. A reference, of course, to the parts in the show where he is in this room playing the piano with the little ogre. Very, very interesting stuff right here. He then slams down on the piano, indicating that he is resonating with Maka and that shit is about to go down. And shit does go down as we reach the climax of the OP, where we see a beautifully animated sequence with our main Meisters, Maka, Blackstar, and Death the Kid fighting against Ashura. Now here the show cleverly misleads us as we are expecting a finale like this, but the show turns a 180 and actually gives us something completely different. different. Something, of course, I felt was for the better, as the finale of the show was just fantastic. But they actually do foreshadow this 180 right here as Ashura roars at our characters and that they all get their asses beat. We then cut to Tsubaki and Liz and Patty looking off ominously, of course mourning the deaths of their meisters. We then cut through a bunch of uninteresting and unimportant characters. It's kind of weird how these guys got like so much focus near the end. It's almost like they were planning like a much bigger story to develop all of these characters, but of course that never happened. It just ended at episode 51 and we never really got to see more of these guys. But the briefness of these characters in the opening does of course indicate how brief their roles were in the show. We then get a very heartbreaking shot of Maka and Soul losing their grips with each other as they are cast away from each other within the Black Blood. This is a reference to the small story arc in the show where of course Maka becomes a pirate. Soul does his best to get her to sign up to Crunchyroll, but she just finds it too convenient to use Kiss Anime, and it was this whole thing. Honestly, not really my favorite part of the show. Just the fact that they acknowledged illegal sites just made my stomach turn. But then we see Medusa in her child form looking very sinister and giving a very evil smile. Again, a reference to how Medusa is in fact an evil character. Very, very subtle here. Then it cuts from Medusa and we see Free, Erica, and Demisunes. Seeing these characters in succession is of course a reference to how these three are still allied with Medusa, who is in prison. And the interesting thing is then it cuts from these three characters to Shinigami. And as soon as we see Shinigami, the mirror that he is looking in cracks. This is an extremely subtle reference to how the four previous characters are trying to break down the DWMA, infiltrate it, and destroy it from the inside. And then we see Spirit Albarn in the corner there with a very dissatisfied look, which is a reference to how he is a negligent father. Oh my god, the references and the subtle meanings and the symbolism. This OP is legendary. So next up we see this shot with Krona walking alone in an alleyway. And as you can see, this alleyway perfectly utilizes the rule of thirds, which directs our attention all the way to the center of the screen, emphasizing the length that Krona had to walk to get here. This of course is a reference to how long Krona had to go before he was able to come to terms with his gender identity. And then in probably the most dramatic shot of the trailer, we see Soul holding Maka's corpse with the eyes of the Kishin on the ground below them. This is a reference to the danger of the Kishin and all of their anxieties going into the battle. And this is also what happens to people who use Kiss Anime. The camera then pans up to reveal the moon much closer than you were expecting, which emphasizes the importance of the moon later on in the story, which is kind of interesting because the anime ends at volume 51 and we never really get to see anything else about the moon. My OP analysis senses are really all out of whack with the scene. It's really hard to decipher. And then our final beautiful wide shot of the trailer, we see all of Death City with the moon above it looking very ominous. We see the dark clouds and dead trees, purple sky, very, very ominous stuff which complements the dark happenings in the series at this point. But we also see a subtle environmental message as we see Nevada, this once beautiful state, completely turned to ruin thanks to the election of Donald Trump. And there you have it. That was Paper Moon. Honestly, one of my favorite OPs of all time. And it's pretty spooky. I think it's very fitting for a Halloween special. Now, before we go, I would like to, of course, talk to you about my sponsorship today, Crunchyroll. Crunchyroll is an anime streaming service that has all your favorites: Full Metal Alchemist, Cowboy Bebop, Soul Eater. They're all going to be there forever. No need to worry. You also get access to all your favorite manga series like The Seven Deadly Sins and Eden Zero, and we also have this very streamlined and efficient user interface. All in all, there is no better way to watch anime, and if you click the affiliate link down below, go to crunchyroll.com/mothersbasement, you can get a 30-day free trial. Now that sounds pretty spicy, I have to say. So with that, my fellow Chibits, have a wonderful day. This has been your boy Jeff, and remember, the only good pirate is a dead pirate.
You hear the screeching of an owl.